Alrighty, guys, we're on our last topic of circles. Today we're going to be talking about the equations of circles, and might sound a little scary, um, but I promise you it's not. They're actually really, really easy. Um, so we're going to look at how to identify the center and the radius from a circle, how to write the equation of a circle given three different options of information, and then finally we'll look at graphing a circle. Okay? And your homework will have a couple of types of each of these problems. Okay. But as far as introductory, so the equations of circles can look a couple of different ways. There's a circle equation always has a center, which we label with h comma k. H and k can be any numbers they want to be. Excuse me. And they have a radius r. So remember, a radius goes from the center to the edge of the circle, and the center, of course, is the one in the middle. Now, these two pictures, what I've got here, all they're for is to show you that you can have a circle centered at the origin, the point in the middle, or it could be some other point in the coordinate plane. And then your radius obviously can be different lengths. So, if you're going to write the equation of a circle, you must know the center and the radius. Okay, and sometimes I'll give you these two things, and sometimes you have to find one of them. But anyway, once you have these two things, then you write the standard form equation like this: x minus h all squared plus y minus k all squared equals r squared. Okay? So notice when h and k come into the equation, their signs are switched. So if h was positive, when he comes in here, he'll be negative. And then vice versa, if he's negative right here, he'll be positive right here. And then down here, whatever your radius is, you just square it. And we'll look at some of those as we go through. Okay, but this is what we're going to base everything off of today. So you need to kind of commit this equation to memory, kind of memorize that. Okay, so identify the center and the radius. So the center, remember the center, it's HK. So remember H is always right here next to H, or X, I mean. So it's HK. And remember, the sign is opposite in here of what it's supposed to be. So if it's -1 right here, when I pull it out, we'll turn it positive. Right here's K. It's already negative, so when I pull it out, we'll make it positive. So that center is 1,9. Now to get the radius, kind of think of it this way. The radius is r squared, so r squared equals 49. So we would take the square root to get that. R is the square root of 49, and we all know what that is. That's 7. So that's all I want. I want the radius as 7, and then the center as 1,9. That's all you have to do. So I told you these are really, really easy. Center and radius. So the center, and you don't have to write this every time or this. You can. A lot of this is just mental, like math, like in your head. You know, it's fine if you go ahead and change the signs and write them down. Okay, so like over here, it's positive already for H. So when I take him out of the equation, I have to change his sign. And then here's K, so I'm going to change him. And then for radius, I take this number and I basically do its square root. Can I do anything with that? Nope. So we'll leave it there. So sometimes if you're asked to find the radius, you'll have square root as an answer. Or you'll have a nice pretty number like this one. Okay? So now we're going to write the equation. So the first way you're going to write the equation is I literally give you the center and the radius. So I gave you both of these things, and you can automatically fill that in. So x, then always put minus first. Now, remember, this is h and this is k. The h is positive, so when he comes in here, he needs to change to negative. So I'm just going to leave that as a negative, and squared, plus y. Always put your negative. Now go back and look. The k is already negative, so when I put him in here, he's going to change it, be minus minus, and so it'll be plus 6 equals. Now my radius is supposed to be 7 squared, so I'm going to bring that down, 49. And that's the equation. It's that simple. The only thing is you have to remember to change the signs of the h and the k when you plug them into the equation. And then remember to square the radius. So it shouldn't be 7 down here. It needs to be 7 squared, which is 49. Same thing. Here's h, here's k. They're both positive, so when I put them in my equation, oops, almost wrote k. That's funny. So minus 1, minus 3. Where'd this 9 come from? That was 3 squared. My radius was 3, so I square it to get 9. Okay, easy peasy. Now what we're going to look at is I'm going to give you can give it from a graph. So remember, you need a center and a radius to write the equation. So I like to find those for myself. So C is going to be my center, R is my radius. Okay. Now, what I like to do on these problems is you're trying to find the center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 2 diameters in. And the way I'm going to do that is I want to find, like, from one end of the circle to the other. So kind of draw it out like that. I'm using a ruler, but you can kind of eyeball it if you need to. And then draw another one this way. And then wherever those two meet should be my center. So my center there is 0, 0. Now I need the radius length. So remember, the radius goes from the center to the edge of the circle. So start from the center, and we'll count. 1, 2. This is counting by like halves, so you kind of double count. 1, 2, 3. The radius is 3. Okay, don't go all the way across. Go from the center to the edge for radius. Now that we know these things, we can plug them into that equation from earlier. So x minus nothing squared plus y minus nothing squared equals 3 squared. Now, I want you to clean this up a little bit, okay? If these were any other numbers but 0, we would just leave them. But when you have zeros there, anytime you have a 0, no matter if you have just 1 here and like 4 over here, if you have zeros, just drop them and write it like this. It just looks cleaner, okay? Like these parentheses and the 0 are pointless when it's 0 there. So you can kind of just drop it and write x squared. And then obviously figure out what 3 squared is. We know that's 9. So that's the equation I want you to write. Okay? Now obviously because this one's at the center, it's kind of easy to figure out where it's at. Or, excuse me. The center of this circle is at the origin. So it's kind of easy to tell where the center was at. On these where it's not at the center, it's kind of harder. So that's why I like you doing this diameter trick I did. So from here to here, the circle is it crosses evenly. So I'm going to go draw me a diameter across that way. And then from here to here, I'm going to go that way. So where do those meet? Right there. So the center is at 2, 2. So see how I got that? I knew it was there, and so I just found where the points were at. 2, 2. Now what's my radius? So I go from the center to the edge, and notice you're counting by ones. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, then we just plug them in. X minus, that's positive, so just leave it minus. Then y minus 2 squared equals. And then down here is going to be 5 squared, which we know what that is, so go ahead and just change it. Or you could, if you know what it is in your head, go ahead and write it. We know 5 squared is 25. So that is the equation. Okay? So notice this was at the center. We don't have any of that extra stuff with the parentheses, which have x squared. But when it's something other than 0, you have to leave it. All right? Now, of all the equation stuff, this would be what would be considered the hardest. It's really not that hard. It's actually kind of easy. So what we're going to do is there's two things I want you to do. The first thing I want you to do, we're going to plug in the center. What I mean by that is we're just going to plug in the center point. So we're going to say x minus the 11 squared plus y minus 10 squared equals, and we don't know the radius, okay? So they didn't tell us anything about the radius, so you're going to have to leave it like that for now. And then the second thing we're going to do, we're going to plug in the other point. We're going to plug this other point in for x and y, and that will tell us what r squared is, so we can go ahead and write the whole equation. So we'll plug it in. 18 minus 11 squared plus 13 minus 10 squared equals r squared. Okay, and then all of this, type in. So let's type all that on the calculator. And so it all comes out to 58. And so what you would do is bring all of this back down. And then instead of r squared, just substitute the 58 that we just found. Okay, let's do another one. So remember, plug in the center first, x. Now that h is already negative, so I have to change it to positive. My k value is going to stay negative down here. Now we'll plug in the other point. So negative 2 plus 7 squared plus 7 minus 4 squared equals r squared. And then again, all of this we type in. Negative 2 plus 7 squared plus 7 minus 4 squared. That ends up being 34. And then we recopy the very first thing we wrote. And then just replace r squared with what we just found. All right. So that's all the writing. So all of it's very easy. So you've got the given the center and the radius, you've got the given the graph, given a point on the circle in the center. And the last thing we're talking about is actually graphing a circle. Which sounds kind of scary, but it's not that bad. So again, it's going to be easy for you if you know the center and the radius. So for these, let's find the center and radius. I'm going to do it for this one. Okay. So looking at this, I don't see any parentheses next to my x and my y. Remember, that's your clue. That's a little blurry. There we go. There's no parentheses, so that's your cue that you are centered at the origin. So 0, 0. So go ahead and put that center. So if you're doing steps, the first thing you do is find the center and the radius. Second thing is to plot the center. So our center's in the dead middle. And now we're going to draw 4 radii. What I mean by that is first we got to find the radius actually. The radius was 25, so you take the square root of 25, that ends up being 5. So from this center, we're going to go in 4 directions and put us a point. That's what I mean by draw the 4 radii. So from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So those, if you want to think about it like the 4 corners of your circle, although it's really not corners, but now what you'll do is kind of connect the 4 in a circular fashion. I understand they will not be perfect. They might look like lemon drops, but obviously don't make them straight. You need to make them kind of curved. So I think it's easier if you just freeform it, as long as it kind of goes through those points. Now see, look, I didn't mess mine up. I'm going to try and back it up. Something like that. I know it's not going to be perfect, but as long as you understand the point that it's circular shaped. Okay. Now, obviously, because your test will be a virtual form, you won't actually be doing this. You'll have to match the graph appropriately. But it's the same principle. Okay, center and radius. So my h is negative here, so when I pull him out, he will turn positive. My k is positive, so when I pull him out, he'll be negative. This is r squared is 9, so the square root of 9 is going to be 3. So my center is at 1, negative 1, so it's down here. My radius is 3. So from this point, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then kind of free form a circle. Now, obviously, mine didn't go through, but you get the idea, as long as it's close. Okay, that's it about equations of circles. I told y'all it was really, really simple. So you'll have a homework assignment for this. I think there's like 20 problems. But as quick as this lesson was, you should be able to get it done in like maybe 20, 25 minutes, I'm guessing. Let's make sure that's done. Remember, this is the last stuff we're learning for circles. So tomorrow, be prepared for the circles test. I've already got it made. It's 30 questions long, 60 points total. So make sure we're prepared for that. As always, if you need help, let me know.